Now I want to introduce our guest speaker this morning. And his name is Jonathan Shapiro, but known otherwise as Zapiro. Zapiro is South Africa's best known and most awarded cartoonist. He couldn't imagine a career in cartooning, so he studied architecture at the University of Cape Town. He couldn't imagine a career in architecture, so he tried switching to graphic design and promptly got conscripted. While in the army, he refused to bear arms and became active in 1983 in the newly formed United Democratic Front. His work as a cartoonist began in earnest with a wide range of political and progressive organizations. When the newspaper South began in 1987, he became its editorial cartoonist. He was detained by the security police in 1988, shortly after leaving on a Fulbright scholarship to study media arts at the School of Visual Arts in New York under comics masters Art Spiegelman, Will Eisner, and Harvey Kurtzman. Today, Zapiro is recognized nationally and internationally as an influential social commentator through his political cartooning. He works as the editorial cartoonist for the Daily Maverick. Previously, he was editorial cartoonist for the Sunday Times, and that's from 1998 to 2018, for the Mail and Guardian from 1994 to 2016, for the Times from 2009 to 2016, for Sowetan from 1994 to 2005, for Cape Argus from 1996 to 1997, and the Cape Times, the Star, the Mercury, and Pretoria News from 2005 to 2008. He has published 22 best-selling annuals, as well as The Mandela Files, Vuvuzela Nation, a collection of his sporting cartoons, and Democracy, a collection of his cartoons spanning the 20 years of South Africa's democracy. Zapiro has held solo cartoon exhibitions in New York, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Dakar, Sweden, and many in South Africa. He has won numerous international and South African awards and was voted one of the 50 most influential people in Africa by the magazine Jeune Afrique, and cited as one of the most influential Africans by New African magazine, London. He was celebrated as one of the 100 world-class South Africans by City Press, and he made the Credit Suisse 50 Movers and Shakers in Africa list. In 2016, he was listed as one of the top 10 cartoonists in the world by Top 10, an online lifestyle magazine in New York. He was honored for his contribution to press freedom and social commentary with the renaming of NY 106 as Zapiro Lane in the Name Your Hood campaign in Gugulethu, Cape Town. Among his many accolades, he also has 2 honorary doctorates in law and in literature. And we at UCT this morning are very fortunate to have Zapiro talk to us. Help me welcome him to the podium.
Thank you very much. When I accepted to speak here, I thought that I would do it as I normally do, which is speak with my cartoons. And I suddenly found out, and it was only yesterday, that that wasn't going to happen. And I kind of froze, because I normally speak with my cartoons. But I have been known to speak without them. It's just that as a cartoonist, there are always kind of exceptions made. And I suppose that's why I'm also standing here without a gown. I actually did graduate here properly as well, down the road. Not just the honorary doctorates, which I'm incredibly grateful for, but I did actually graduate with a Bachelor of Architectural Studies during the dark days. It was 1982, in fact, when I graduated. But as you know, I didn't work as an architect. So yikes, what am I going to do without my cartoons? the point is, I need to provide some kind of meaning to you on a day like today. I mean, you're graduating, and what is it that I can say that will provide any meaning and that you won't just sort of forget as you walk out the door? That tends to be the kind of thing that could happen on graduation days. I think some of the older people think back and think, well, what do I remember from the graduation speech that somebody made? So I'm not sure if I can provide meaning now, but what I thought was interesting when I started thinking about that, and that was, of course, when I suddenly discovered that I wouldn't have the cartoons as the usual crutch that I have to provide a thread and a lot of laughs and a lot of real meaning. And that is that actually, I probably have been able to provide some meaning for some of you at some point. One of the things that happens when I do go out and speak, and it happens more and more often, as I say, usually with a great deal of backup, is that I think the thing that gives me the greatest pleasure wherever I go is young people, often a lot younger than you, come up to me and say, I just looked at your cartoon yesterday in my exam paper, or I looked at it in my history syllabus or English syllabus or life orientation, and indeed actually at university too. So some of the people your age, some postgraduates, something about the cartoons speaks to people. And as I say, that provides the fact that there is meaning in something that I'm doing is what gives me meaning in my own life. I would imagine that many of you have encountered these cartoons somewhere along the line, and that hopefully that has provided some sort of meaning. When you see the cartoons, what did you think? I mean, I'm not expecting you to agree with me all the time. Absolutely not. In fact, a lot of the time I'm putting things out there that will be contested, because that is the nature of trying to actually engage in our society, is trying to do things that are contested, that are not the safe way, that are not the easy way. And I would hope that some of the cartoons you may have seen would have made you think. And some of them would make you laugh. Some of them would make you outraged. And the point about all of them, I think any good cartoon, whether it does any of those things, is that it has an element of surprise. Because communication often, really good communication often has that element of surprise. And the best humor is about surprise. The best form of communicating in cartoons is about surprise. There's always a twist, and there's always that way of trying to get people to see things in a different way. So I hope that has happened when you've looked at some of the cartoons. And as I say, I wish I had them here to show you, because they do bring a different element to things. Today happens also to be April the 6th. So in terms of meaning for my own life, as I said, I've created this kind of parallel universe that somehow connects with reality, and people appear to find meaning in some of the things that I do. But in my own reality, April the 6th has huge significance. It's the day that my mother, Gaby, passed away exactly 18 years ago. She was a huge influence on me. And I often think about the fact that you need somebody, as it happens, both my parents were, but you need, if you're lucky, if you find yourself lucky enough to have parents who influence you powerfully, if you find one or two teachers in your junior school, in your primary school, you find one or two teachers in your high school, and hopefully a couple of lecturers at varsity that really bring meaning to your own life, it helps you find your direction. What that direction is another story, because it isn't always what you've studied exactly. You're going to find that, I'm absolutely sure. Very few people know what their direction is exactly. Some of you think you know, and believe me, the path to wherever you're going to get is probably a lot more circuitous than you think it's going to be. Even those of you who think you know exactly what you're going to do will probably find it'll change. Those of you who don't worry. Failure is a huge part of finding where you're going. But back to my mother. My mother, as an influence on me, she was somebody who opened my eyes to the injustices of what was happening as I grew up during apartheid. She was somebody who was a frustrated activist, somebody who wanted to be a real activist, and because of pressure within the family, and I'm sure many of you whose parents have been activists or who have become activists, you'll find that there is often family pressure to just keep it down a bit. But you need to do what you need to do. And my mother encouraged that in all of us. And when the United Democratic Front was formed in 1983, she aged 53, which is very late life for a full blooming activist. That's when she really became a fully fledged activist, along with a number of my siblings and myself. And my lodestone, what I look to when I think about values, when I think about principle, when I think about struggle, when I think about the most incredibly entertaining and inspiring time of my life, it actually, although my university studies in that time was a good questioning time and I enjoyed some aspects of it, it was after university, it was during the 80s, that's where I found expression as someone who had studied architecture, had found that I was leaving that, and only found out afterwards I was getting a degree. I didn't know I was going to get a degree. They divided the degree in two as I left, and I found myself with a degree. Was then able to do postgraduate studies because I had a degree. So circumstances play an enormous part in it. But the thing that inspired me was becoming part of this egalitarian, ground-up movement that was the United Democratic Front. And my mother was so inspirational to so many people within the UDF and later within the ANC that they then named the ANC branch that is closest to us down the road. What used to be Claremont is now the Gaby Shapiro ANC branch. And I gather that there are a number of people here who are in that branch and who remember my mother and as well, and what she stood for, what she inspired in many people. So it's very powerfully significant for me today. Today also happens to be, it's not a particular date, April the 6th, but it happens to be the day that a guy who I see with a shower in his head is appearing in court. And in my little parallel universe, which is somehow intersected with reality to the point where a lot of other people seem to see that shower and give meaning to that. A lot of people feel very vindicated that he's appearing in court in Durban today. I often ask people, when do you think the first corruption cartoon is that I did of Jacob Zuma? I mean, anyone like hazards a year. I didn't hear that. Well, some people have said to me 2006, 5, whatever. 2002. That is when the corruption that has beset Jacob Zuma and our country went into the public domain. It was from earlier, from around 99 and even before, but that is when it happened. In 2002, it entered the public domain. Many of us who believe in the values that we encountered in the struggle have been fighting against that corruption for more than 15 years. And today we see him appearing in court, and obviously let the court take its course, but I have confidence in the judiciary actually, and I think it's going to go in a particular direction. That shower, I'll just say one or two more things, that in terms of that parallel universe, as I say, I feel genuinely fortunate that I've been able to find a path that I didn't expect. And that's what I think may happen to some of you, where if you do what you love, even if you take the risk and perhaps fail for a while. It happened to me for a long time. I spent 10 years making zero money, living hand to mouth, just doing things for organizations, and suddenly found myself able to make a living and actually make a career and speak to more people and find other people finding meaning in what I do. So I feel incredibly lucky, and I'm really hoping that will happen for many of you if you choose to do what you really believe in, and find yourself lucky enough for that to intersect with what other people want to see from you. So that shower, I'll just tell you that there was a British rapper who was coming to South Africa, and people said to him, "Do you know anything about South Africa? I mean, do you know who the president is?" And he said, "Isn't he the guy with the shower on his head?" Wow. I mean, that's the way this thing can start to kind of be seen as symbolic. I'll tell you one more little episode where there's something in that parallel universe of mine which intersected, and that was from a long time earlier, from 1999, the day that Nelson Mandela delivered his final speech as president to Parliament. And I was lucky enough to attend Parliament that day, and he gave he wasn't an Obama-like speaker, but he spoke with, you felt the integrity and the principle and the wonder at what he represented. It was really amazing. Then went down the road to Fernwood Estate for the sort of after party, and I managed to smuggle in it went through the metal detectors, but the first puppet that we made for Zanews, some of you may be familiar with Zanews, I had a lot to do with it initially. They put this puppet through the metal detectors, and in it went, and it's a full-size head and the body, and I was walking around and saying, "Hello, how are you?" And people were treating the puppet as if it was really Nelson Mandela. It was really fantastic. Then I got permission from Speaker of Parliament, then Speaker, to go up to Nelson Mandela and to actually present him with this puppet, which was quite an experience. I had to push past the bodyguards, and as I pushed past the bodyguards and approached him, he didn't know it was coming. I stuck the puppet's hand out, and he said, "Oh, I believe I've met this gentleman before." And it was, he really, as president, he had a fantastic sense of humor, but he also engaged with the satire that people like me were trying to do. He engaged with criticism, he engaged with satire. We've been through a very dark period in our country. It feels to me as if we've turned a corner. It really does, and I think it's fantastic for you that you're graduating at a time when hopefully you can feel hope again. Because for a long time, it felt to me as if hope, which is a huge part of what you need in your life as you go out there and try and find meaning, I felt hope was being dampened. And it feels to me as if there is more hope under very difficult circumstances that many of you have been through in your university career. As this university transforms, there's also now, I think, a lot more hope out there for the whole nation. And I think it's a fantastic time for you to take the bull by the horns, so to speak. Cyril Ramaphosa, and just go for it and really do it, despite the risks of potential failure for a while. Do what you believe in, even if it's not the path that you set yourself out to do initially. And I think that the whole country is on a path that where we can again tap into some of the values of Nelson Mandela. And good luck and all the best. Thank you.